The class 1 crowded is going for 3 opinions. The surgical case who found you on the website and heard you do expansion or need surgery, they can't wait to pay the fee because they're dying to get that treatment done. As long as you believe in your process and you're doing something good, don't let a $200 or $300 lab bill stand in your way of doing the best dentistry. And it's not about Partners Dental Studio, folks. This is about whoever you work with. If you're happy, you've got an amazing lab, and they're charging you a couple of $100 more for something that's special, don't feel bad about it. Charge more. And your patients are only going to say no if you don't believe in it. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs podcast. Today, I'm with somebody I really respect a ton, somebody who's taught me a lot, somebody I can now call a friend because we've spent some time together and I've gotten to know him a bit. Djamil Abiyev. Djamil, welcome.
Thank you, Glenn, for having me. Fantastic opportunity.
You can just see his exuberance, his excitement. This is a man who is passionate about the world of orthodontics. Let me just tell everybody out there, Djamil started, he's the founder of, right?
Yes.
Partners Dental Studio. I don't want to use the word lab because it's so much more than a lab. And to be clear to everybody out there, I have no financial interest whatsoever in his lab and in the studio. He has been a sponsor at Orthopreneurs and some Orthopreneurs RD private events. I just got to spend some time with him in Nashville, and he gave a little presentation that blew our minds on what you're doing. So for those of you out there who've never worked with him, we're going to cover some stuff here that's going to blow your mind. Things that he's doing that literally no other lab is doing. Techniques and approaches that changed my practice. And so I'm just thrilled that we get to have this conversation. And like I said, I have zero financial interest in his company at all. So with that, let's get started. And if you don't mind taking a few seconds and let everybody know a little bit about it. How did you end up where you are today? How did you end up as the guy running, Partners Dental Studio and doing some pretty crazy stuff?
Finished dental school, medical school with a dental degree. Came to America.
Medical school.
Was a dental degree.
Dental degree. I didn't know such a thing exists.
It's overseas. Stuff gets complicated.
Enough said.
Yes. Came here 24 years ago. Was on a journey to get my dental board done. And 15 years ago, Partners Dental Studio has been found by me. I decided to approach orthodontic laboratory world and go into lab.
Well, I know you're based in Minnesota.
Yes.
And listening to you speak, I could detect a really serious Minnesotan accent. You sound a little bit like maybe East Minnesota, right?
I picked up from my wife.
Yeah, I could tell. But what made you go in? I mean, you worked really hard to come out with that medical dental degree, right?
Yes.
You took your boards. What made you go into lab? I mean, for most of us in the ortho world, lab was the last place on the planet where they wanted to be. And it's rare to find a dentist or orthodontist who just loves to live in the lab. Why?
I will tell you, I've been always involved in technology passionately myself. I like to stay innovative. This is the reason Partners Dental Studio has been a long success for all my team members. People always say, Partners Dental Studio, Djamil, we actually have 90 people here. And I always joke, there is only 2 people here with a dental background. I have a clinical director and me. Everybody else comes, learns, enjoys, and joins the passion.
For those of you who aren't just listening, for those of you who are watching, this guy smiles so much because he's so passionate about what he does. And I got to be honest, most of the folks who I talk to who run dental labs, who are running good work, are also passionate. They love what they're doing. They want to help the doctors, and he's doing this for the right reasons. And I'll let everybody know, a few weeks ago, I had a patient come in who I'd closed down an open anterior bite. And the way I like to close them down, if the incisal edge is at the right spot for the smile arc, I will intrude the posterior teeth sequentially and get the bite to close down. It's much more stable. It uses the bite forces to maintain it. But she wanted the kind of retainer I made years ago, which was an Essex with spikes on it, on the lingual, because she wanted 3 sets of clear. I do a special retainer program when I'm done. She wanted 3 sets with just regular Essex and 1 set with what we'll call spikes or reminders on the lingual. I scanned it. I sent it to Djamil. He texted me back. Is this what you're looking for? I said, kind of. He fixed it. He sent it back. Is this what you're looking for? Absolutely. That's what I want. And this is a guy who just loves giving you, and I also kind of get a sense you not only give people what they want, you love tinkering. You love,
Discovering,
yeah,
discovering.
you love figuring out new
Yes.
ways around a problem.
Yes. I will tell you, this has been my passion from day one. I always say, I will take care of all the challenging cases. Don't worry about the rest. You're never going to fall in the wrong hands with partners. I'm going to grab you, I'm going to guide you, and I'm going to take care of all your difficult cases myself. I always get involved.
It's true. You really are hands-on, and it's a beautiful thing. Really hands-on. And you talk about helping. So let's get into some really cool stuff, because I promised everybody at the opening that we're going to cover some really cool ground. And for me to say that, it's got to be pretty cool, right? Because there's still people out there who say, wow, I'm doing these metal printed expanders. I go, yeah, that's cool, and they're great, but they're not new. Right? They've been around a little while now. And for those people who are not using them, you might want to start considering, the 3D printed metal expanders or appliances. They fit like jewelry when done properly, and they're amazing. Pros and cons to everything. But you do stuff that makes that look like an old Ford Model T. So let's start first with airway.
Yes.
Right? Now, there are going to be people out there. I've had some very, shall we say, heated discussions with doctors who feel like orthodontists shouldn't in any way be involved in airway analysis, discussion, treatment, what have you. And we're going to let that discussion fall by the wayside for right now, because I believe at the very least, every orthodontist should be a gatekeeper to refer out to an ENT, an oral surgeon, myofunctional therapist, whoever's on their team. But that said, talk to me a little bit about, first of all, when we talk airway related to a lab, what is that in its basic essence? What does that mean?
It's a different approach by partners. What we do in our airway department, it started about 4 years ago when we first acquired our first metal printer. So we said, okay, how we can implement it to print something custom.
He's smiling again, people. He's smiling.
So we literally took a screw out, grinded out from any regular expander, and started to develop a metal frame so it can fit the pallet. That was a challenge number one. Then we figured out how we can place a MARPI in any narrow pallet. Well, a year passes by, we're getting professional at making MARPIs, and we decided, well, how can we get more precise at placing our tads? Can we discover how much bone we have? So we acquired the software and start learning about reading CBCTs. It was a difficult process until we figured out how we can line up the DICOM CBCT file on top of STL file. We lined them up together, and
so again, pausing just for a second, because your brain moves fast, right? So for those who don't know what MARPIs are, which is most of you know what they are, but you like using the word TAD, so we'll use TAD. They're TAD supported, right? I know Juan Moon and others like other words, but a screw of some sort anchors, hopefully bicortically, to allow a skeletally anchored expansion. So you're not just getting dental tipping, you're getting true skeletal expansion in an adult. So you took the STL file, the scan, the intraoral scan of the patient's teeth, and you merged it with a CBCT and were able to figure out how to get them to line up perfectly.
How much tissue we have, how much bone we have, where do we end bicortically, and how much do you want to pass? 1 millimeter extra just to have that retention. So it was a discovery.
And when people out there say, come on, Djamil, everybody can do that now. When were you doing that?
That started 4 years ago.
Right. And anybody here who says that 4 years ago they were lining up STLs with CBCT, I'm not going to call BS. I'm just going to say there were very, very few people 4 years ago who were doing that and lining up on fiducials, because that's what you're doing. And that was my master's thesis. My master's thesis was superimpositions using fiducials. Yeah. And so anybody who says they were doing that 4 years ago, God bless you on that one. So anyway, point being, you're lining up CBCTs with STL files. And what are you doing? You got all your landmarks and what have you. How does that help?
So first of all, our goal always to determine what screw doctor wants to pick. If we see the male patient, we always advise to go with the best possible available is a tiger screw.
And screw, everybody, he's referring to the activation screw, not the screw that goes into the bone.
The actual expansion screws that creates a mechanism to expand the MARPI.
Right. So you talk about the tiger screw in males.
Yes, is tiger screw, literally does not break, does not fail, withstands any force possible available, and comes in different variations as well, sizing variations.
And to their
Yes,
credit, Dr. Sherry and Gannon, who
yes,
many of you might know from the Surgeodontics Part 1 and Part 2 courses at the Orthopreneurs University online. You should go check it out. If you have not taken their Surgeodontics online, you should definitely go check it out at Orthopreneurs University, which is found at orthopreneurs.com. But they are my surgeons. And they said to me, imagine the surgeon saying, we can do less surgery with a tiger screw.
yes.
I said, what? Oh, yeah, you got to go check this out. You got to go see this. And then I met Djamil at the Surgeodontics in-person course that they put on in Fort Lauderdale,
Yes.
that we put on
Yes.
a year and a half ago or so. It's probably been
Yes.
almost 18 months is my guess.
Yes.
And I saw the tiger screw. And the tiger screw purportedly, because I don't have the science to talk
Yes.
about it,
Yes.
but it purportedly allows palatal expansion skeletally with way less invasiveness than a dome or cuts.
Correct.
Historically now, how many Marpies with tiger screws have been inserted, you know?
It's hard to say how many, but I would say 70% of our work now is tiger screw.
And how often feedback from the doctors is it, we didn't have to do any cuts, we didn't have to do any zygomaticomaxillary cuts anywhere, we didn't have to do palatal cuts? Because I'll be the first to admit, I don't even know the protocols with the tiger screw. Is there a set protocol with how one uses it?
So I belong to several different groups where a doctor always shares their expertise. How they expanded, slow, fast. I will not name all the names today that working with us, but there is doctors in the industry that expand with tiger screw without any surgical interventions.
Yeah, and that's in adults.
Yes, and
in
adult
males.
patients. Yes, yes.
Over
in
the
adults,
age of
male
21.
patients. Yes, they create. So everybody has a technique. A technique how you turn, technique how you expand, when you slow down, when you back up, what's the complications are, and the biggest one is male, female. How much bone do we have? How strategically do we place the tats?
Yeah, and that's what Gannon and Sherry, when they first started their protocols, and they're two oral surgeons here in Dallas who are amazing at what they do,
Yes.
and they're very scientifically driven. And they developed an algorithm or protocol based upon gender, age, morphology of the palate. And when you do cuts, when you don't do cuts, male versus female, right? Gender, age, morphology, all those sorts of things played a huge role. And it seems like this has changed a bit, because if you've done a lot of Marpies out there, and I've done my fair share of them, the screw was always the weak link in everything.
Correct.
Because it didn't fit in super narrow palates, as you mentioned, right? Because I think the smallest you could get in an MSE1 was a 6.
Yes.
And I think it was an 8 in the 2, if I'm not mistaken. And if someone had a super high, super narrow palate, you're out of luck.
Yes. And I'll tell you, tiger screw, 8 millimeters, the body is extremely small. It can fit any vault. And I'm going to share another secret. Within the last months, we've done a couple of swappable screws with the industry leaders. It's coming out soon. We have a couple in the mouth. Patients happy, doctors happy. Soon enough, we introduce.
I'm going to pause you for a second here. Again, I'm like the dental translator here, because again, you don't know this. I'm going to tell you a little secret. You just shared a secret. I'm going to share one with you. I contacted a patent attorney 2 years ago to start working on developing a new type of Marpie, because I'd done so many Marpies that I started seeing all the problems we were having. Great designs, the innovators in the industry who got us to where we are, I say thank you. We stand on the shoulders of giants. But for those of you out there who've done enough Marpies, and let's not go with failures. Let's not talk about where screws weren't placed bicortically, or they fell out, or they loosened up. Let's not talk about those. The ones that got really good engagement and got expansion. One of the biggest problems we had is great. You could barely get a 6 or an 8 in there. Now you got an 8, and you expanded and great. Now they're no longer in bilateral crossbite. They're almost edge to edge. But now you need more expansion. What are you going to do? You're stuck. Now you got to, it was a nightmare, because now you had to take out the screws, keep the expander, pull it out,
Or it
rescan, put it back in,
maintains a palate,
maintain.
maintains a bone. I mean, there is a
And
lot
it
of
was a nightmare. And
yes.
that was a huge issue for us is you couldn't get some of them were too narrow. You couldn't get stuff in there. And when you did, there was no way. I guarantee you, the narrower the palate, the more expansion you ultimately need, right? You don't need to be a genius to figure that one out. But there's an inverse relationship between the amount of expansion you need and the size of expander you can put in.
Absolutely.
So if you could only put an 8mm expander in, but you needed way more than that in terms of expansion, now you had to pull it out and it was a nightmare. So a swappable screw, as Djamil is talking about, means you take out the screw, you put a new one in and keep going.
Sky's the limit.
And that is a massive, and that's why I contacted a patent attorney to start designing. And like many things, I just didn't have the wherewithal of the time. So I'm thanking you for solving that major problem that almost caused me to go through this nightmare development of trying to create this thing. And so swappable screw is big.
Yes.
Swappable screw is big. I love that.
You want more secrets?
Oh, bring it on.
Titanium.
So Marpies currently, I know, I kind of know where you're headed with this one because I know your secrets. So Marpies, for those of you out there who don't know, is typically a stainless steel screw. It's a stainless steel mechanism held. And if you go to buy the great MSE, right? Developed in Biomaterials Korea, I think it was. Wan Moon was instrumental in helping develop that. If you buy one of those, it comes as the screw and what have you in the middle with 4 dead soft or stiffer stainless steel arms. And you choose stainless stiff or dead soft depending upon other applications like reversible headgear or any number of things. You're going to wear elastics. There's a whole series of reasons why you choose one over the other. But my point is, that's the way they came, and everything was stainless steel. But I know Djamil has a secret. So you've been 3D printing. You've been a bad boy. You've been 3D printing, not just. But first, when you 3D print, what are you 3D printing typically? For the last 4 years, when you 3D print, what are we printing? What is it made out of?
So 90%, I should say, of our printing material is cobalt chromium.
That's what I figured, like partial dentures.
Yes, it's a medical stainless steel, biocompatible. Everybody is inquiring today's days about stainless steel printing. Stainless steel is available with us or with other labs. We did not shift fully to stainless steel because it's soft. It will not work for Marpies. It will not work for certain applications. It's going to start bending.
It's the alloys you put into the stainless steel that make it get its rigidity, not the stainless steel itself.
Yes, but we have to follow the protocol because this is all medical applications. So we did have a request for patient to the allergy to stainless steel, to nickel allergy.
There's a nickel.
Yes. So we ended up researching our titanium. We ended up finding a grade 23 titanium. It's medical grade printable titanium that can be used for internal implants, any oral applications. It's a medical grade titanium. So we started tinkering and printing just regular expanders at first. First, we tried to figure out how to weld those expanders because it's a different welding process. There is a lot goes into it. You have to make sure your gas is dry enough. You have to make sure the application is there. But we found a solution, and we have a titanium Marpie now. We've done so far two of them in the patient's mouth. Doctors are happy. We are happy. Patients split, and sooner or later people will request more and more titanium expanders, and we want to tell the world that we have them available.
So there's 2 components to this, right? First of all, congratulations on doing this, and thank you for doing it. Because for those who have nickel allergies, what kind of expander are we going to give them, right? If it's anywhere near the tissue, they're going to have a reaction. First question, I remember from my biomaterials days as a restorative dentist, titanium is soft. Right?
Not printed. It's stiff.
That's my question. Because I remember, implants, you can't scale them. If you scale an implant, you'll damage it because implants are typically soft. And I know it's a different grade of titanium as well. So it is a stiff material.
Yes, it's much stiffer. You can bend it somewhat, but it's not as you expected cobalt chromium. It's much stiffer. It's a little bit fragile. So, but we found a technique and a way to keep it in a proper consistency for Marpies especially.
And it can be used in someone who's nickel sensitive.
Correct.
So how narrow of a palate, if I want to do a Marpy with a titanium printed, how narrow can we go on that?
What we use is Dentarum is the only brand so far in the world that has a titanium actual screws, the expansion screw.
Oh, so the screw is titanium as well.
So the screw, yes, because otherwise we tinkered with that as well.
You can't put stainless steel with titanium, I bet.
Yeah, so we printed a sleeve and we placed a stainless steel screw inside of titanium sleeve. And guess what we used? We used the same bonding materials that you use for implants. So first we glued it because we couldn't weld steel to the titanium. So that was our first prototype. We said, well, I don't think I want to hear complications of Marpy breaking. We need to find expansion screws that's titanium. Dentarum gave us an option and we found a way how to implement it. It still does looks like a sleeve. So you can go pretty narrow. It's a 12 millimeter expansion screw. We can raise it up, screw a little bit, and print sleeve around it and feed the narrow pallets. We get very, very creative in the digital world.
Beautiful. Yeah. And again, when we talk about narrow pallets, we talk 6s and 8s and 10s. Usually the pallets are more than 8 or 10 or 12 millimeters wide. The challenge was the way the arms came out of the mechanism, because you had your screw, then you had the mechanism around the screw, and then you had the arms coming out of the mechanism, and you couldn't make the arms 90-degree bends. And even if you could, they still took up 2 to 4 millimeters on each side. So an 8 millimeter appliance, I don't know the exact number, but my guess is it takes up 14 to 16 millimeters.
You're absolutely right. But with 3D CAD designs, we can turn those angles and bring the screws, the arms of the screw, whatever we want them to be.
Game changer. Game changer. And again, there are people out there, I won't mention any names, but a friend of yours and a friend of mine from the West Coast who's not that into airway uses these on their adult patient to do expansion. And if the airway gets better, great. If airway doesn't get better, great. But they want a wider smile. It's not just applicant, because we talk about airway. But the truth of the matter is this is airway is solved because of anatomic changes. Right? We're not solving airway. We're solving a width of a nasal floor by expansion of the palate. And so for some people...
And then protraction. So we're breathing better all over the place.
Yeah, but let's assume there's someone listening right now who couldn't care less about airway. Hey, look, I'm an orthodontist. I'm not an ENT. I don't care about this stuff. But I do have patients who want a wider smile, and they're edge to edge, or they're crossbite on the maxilla, and the maxilla is narrower than their mandible. If you look at it from a coronal perspective on a CBCT, it's crystal clear that they're definitely narrower on the upper than the lower, and they could benefit from just expansion for no other purpose than just expansion. Forgetting there's no sleep studies, there's no airway. We're just trying to make one. The Tiger screw can really help make this happen in adults.
I overall think that probably in 5 years we'll be using only Marpies as an expansion.
So the classic RPE that we give to kids today, you think will be a Marpy in the future?
Correct. Because in majority of the cases, what does happens with the regular expanders? Tipping, then tuck it in. So we're losing half of the expansion. But when we're expanding the skeletal expansion as well as the dental, it becomes much broader expansion, and there is more place to bring the teeth lingually, if necessary, after expansion.
No, I mean, I have no problem with it. And again, I'm newer to the Tiger screw world because I wouldn't say I'm late to the game, because majority of people don't even know it exists. But certainly Steve and John, Sherry and Gannon, they told me about it, and there have already been people using it. And so I'm just excited and thrilled about the swappable component, because that'll be huge.
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about other things you're doing with titanium, because we've talked about expanders, right? We've talked about how you're printing them out of titanium, which is amazing. By the way, question, titanium appliance for appliance, how much more expensive is a titanium appliance versus a traditional appliance? So if I want to get an RPE made, that's traditional RPE, now I want to do it in, well, let's go Marpy, just Marpy to Marpy. What's the price difference for titanium?
It's about $200 to $300 more for titanium print. The titanium print's complicated by itself. It's a combustible material. When we print, you swap completely all your filters. The production stops. We have a whole protocol and a quality control system. It's just a little bit more complicated process, besides being more expensive.
Well, for the people out there who say $200 to $300 more, I'm not even paying $200 for my RP. Just understand, We're talking about a Marpy, first of all. We're talking about titanium Marpy, not a traditional Marpy, with traditional,
yes,
stainless steel, what have you. But I hope to gosh that all of you folks out there doing Marpies are charging accordingly, right?
Correct.
This is not I do my Marpy cases for $5,000 because that's all patients will pay.
Yes.
I'm here to tell everybody that, like the old story about Picasso, painting on the left bank of the River Seine in Paris, someone came up to him and said, "Can you please," and by the way, my French accent is horrible, so I apologize for destroying the name of that river, that beautiful river. But they said, "Can you paint a portrait for me?" So he painted a portrait and gave it to them. And they said, "How much is this?" He says, $10,000. And they said, $10,000, it took you 15 minutes. He goes, "No, ma'am, it took me 30 years.
Yes.
And for those of you out there who have learned about Marpies, who've learned about how to do airway, how to handle these things, don't fall into the belief that you should be charging the same amount you do on a class 2 pediatric case, 100%. Right? And please, people, do not be that person who posts in a Facebook group, "So, hey, I've got a patient coming who needs a Marpy. How do I do it?" Like, please don't be that person. It upsets me so much. And I know someone's going to reference this the next time they do it, but it bothers me so much. As a healthcare provider, you're learning how to do a very important technique that is extremely technique sensitive by asking a question on a Facebook group, as opposed to going to at least a 2-day course. And we make fun of general dentists who try to do ortho from a 2-day course.
Yes.
So I'm just telling everybody out there, number one, invest in yourself by going to the courses with the great people who are going to teach you this stuff. Again, Gannon and Sherry, Surgeodontics, the reason I did it as an Orthopreneurs University course is to at least give you some insight. So you're not going blind and asking people, "How do I do this stuff? And what are the indications and how do I get through it?" But once you've invested in yourself, charge accordingly. So that a $300 additional charge for a Marpy is no big deal, because you're charging considerably more for the case because you are invested in yourself and you're doing more work and you're doing it well.
Correct.
Would you agree with that, Djamil?
100%. 100%. It has to be built into price accordingly, because we change the price. Every time it's a male adult, it's not a 4-tat design. It's a 6-tat design, or it's an 8-tat design. It gets bigger, it gets more complicated. There is more parts involved simply. So doctors, we always tell our doctors at the first consultation, this is most likely 6-tat design. Please be aware of the price. And multiple orthodontic groups already manage that internally in the office. Once they receive it, the price changes accordingly.
I think totally different discussion. I think orthodontists should charge what they want. But like you said, you love the complicated cases. I learned when I came out of ortho residency and took over my practice, I was going to treat majority adults, right? I was a restorative dentist for 20 years. Lots of high-end cosmetic work, lots of implant work. I never placed the implants. I let specialists place implants, but I did, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 implant reconstructions on a regular basis. So for me, trying to meet an aesthetic concern of a 45-year-old male or female is no big deal. I don't care. It's small potatoes. And I will treat that all day long. And let me tell you, folks, I will charge accordingly. I will charge accordingly. And I was chastised. I do a lot of surgical cases. I was chastised by one of the most prominent members of the orthodontic community of Dallas, a man, I won't mention name, but anybody who knows this guy's name knows this guy is the patriarch in a good way of Dallas orthodontics, teaches at Baylor, great guy. He pulled me aside because he knows I did 3 years in ethology, and he's the only guy to ever go through the Roth course twice. And he says, how much are you charging for your surgical cases? And I told him. He says, "You're about $5,000 too cheap." And I'm not cheap, folks. I'm not cheap for my surgical cases. And this is somebody who charges close to $15,000 for a surgical case. Okay, not me, him. And I said, "I can't charge that much." He goes, "Why not?" And I said, well, it suddenly became a problem with me believing in myself, not the fee. And he sort of explained to me, he goes, "Is a restorative dentist dependent on your outcome? Yes. Is a surgeon dependent on your outcome? Absolutely. Is the patient dependent on your outcome?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "And you should be charging, if they're getting $20,000 for a 4-hour surgery and you're treating them for 18 months, you should be getting paid accordingly." And then I up my surgical fee, and I have no problem doing that. And here's the crazy part of all of this, folks. The patients who need this work don't argue with you. That's the crazy part. The class 1 crowded is going for 3 opinions. The surgical case who found you on the website and heard you do expansion or need surgery, they can't wait to pay the fee because they're dying to get that treatment done. As long as you believe in your process and you're doing something good, Don't let a $200 or $300 lab bill stand in your way of doing the best dentistry. And it's not about Partners Dental Studio, folks. This is about whoever you work with. If you're happy, you've got an amazing lab, and they're charging you a couple of $100 more for something that's special, don't feel bad about it. Charge more. And your patients are only going to say no if you don't believe in it. And I've seen that happen a bunch of times.
They see the value in it. I belong to multiple private groups, and doctors constantly post a picture and say, patient split last night. And he messaged this morning and said, I can already breathe better.
I know.
I usually bring these messages to my airway team and say, guys, look at this.
It's crazy.
Can you believe it? You are playing a huge role in somebody else's life. And I'm going to tell you another secret. Me and my 3 kids, we're all flying to see one of my favorite orthodontists who does piezo cut, because I'm 46. So I do need to receive a piezo cut just to be guaranteed. So we're flying in December to get 4 Marpies in.
And I know who you're going to, so you already told me. But at the end of the day, there wasn't that much information around 5 years ago when I really started, maybe close to 6 or more, when I really started doing Marpies. And I went to people I respected and trusted and learned from them and did the best I could. But there was still so much unknown when we were doing it. And I remember and again, there's going to be people out there, no matter what you say to them, they're going to argue with you about airway. And that's okay. Everybody's entitled to be wrong, right? Because I'll always cite the literature when I give you an answer. But I will tell you, the first case I ever did was a dental assistant of a referring practice's mother who came in, and she was narrow. And I wasn't doing it for airway reasons. I wanted to just split her for the sake of getting her wider. And she told me she felt pressure and felt pressure and felt pressure. We weren't doing cuts. And this was like a 64-year-old woman, right? We didn't know. She was turning. She said, felt tons of pressure. She was in the shower when she heard a pop. And she said she could suddenly breathe incredibly well. And she went to the mirror in her towel, and there was a big diastema. And like it's like the pressure was building, just popped like a champagne cork. And all of a sudden there was a big diastema there. And Sherry, by the way, a little secret here. I was sharing secrets. Steve Sherry, my surgeon, I asked him to put it in. He said, it won't work. I'll do it for you, but it's not going to work. This stuff doesn't work. I said, come on, just do it for me anyway. And he trusted me, and he did it.
I love it.
And he kept telling me it's not going to work. This stuff doesn't work. And now he's one of the biggest advocates. And so you do dozens or hundreds of cases with expansion, and you hear every person tell you, with few exceptions, I breathe better. I breathe better. I had a young man who said that most of the patients will tell you they breathe better for sure when they're working out. Working out all day long. But many stop snoring. It's just an amazing thing. And so if you want to expand for just the sake of expanding, to make people wider for cosmetics or for occlusion, watch the side effects of when you do this expansion. And there are people who are listening right now, Djamil, right now, whose sole goal is to prove that, oh, did you hear what Krieger said? Expand for airway. It doesn't work. Go, attack, go as hard as you want. There's enough literature out there now to support the fact that the world is not flat. And expansion may not be the answer in many patients, but it could be a part of the solution. And we have to diagnose and figure out, is it adenoids, tonsils, septum, turbinates? Is it a mandibular setback? Is the mandible setback? Is the maxilla too far back? Is the whole maxillomandibular complex too far back? There's diagnosis that goes with this stuff, people. So we're not saying just expand everybody. Important.
I will tell you, I was sponsoring and speaking myself at the Orthodontics meeting in Utah. And when I took Dr. Zagi's class there for 4 hours.
Oh, Zanish's.
It's like I was blind and I could see again. I got so much information. I got his QR code. I came to the office. I said, you know what? Whole airway department is taking this course. They're like, well, we already know what we're doing. I said, we're taking this course.
You think you know what you're doing.
Yes. I said,
Dr. Zagi, for those of you who don't know him, is remarkable. Is he West Coast, right?
Yes, he's West. He is ENT surgeon, doctor, and he's amazing. We made Marpi for him as well. He breathes well now too.
Did he had one done on himself?
Yes.
Yeah. You can tell from his facial profile, his facial shape. You can see it from a mile away. But his work on frenectomies is both remarkable, and I think it's being bastardized by people who want to take shortcuts. But I brought when I did the RD meeting, I don't know if you were at that meeting in in LA, where
Not in LA.
I brought about, we had many of our RD members and their interdisciplinary teams. They're myofunctional therapists, they're ENTs, pediatric dentists. It was a great opportunity for people to grow their network with amazing specialists to train them on airway. And we had Audrey Yoon and Stanley Liu and Zaghi was there. It was just amazing. My ENT was sitting next to me, and he's remarkable. He was just watching Zaghi. My surgeon was on the other side, and they're both looking, going, "This guy's a stud. Like, this guy, he's amazing." And out there, if you've not heard Zaghi speak, I encourage you, please listen to what he has to say. This guy's an ENT and does remarkable work, and it dovetails beautifully with the cases you're seeing walk through your office on a regular basis. But as we start running out of time here, and you and I, we didn't decide we're going to get into this, and we'll try to make some resources available from some of the things that Djamil has talked about, whether it's titanium printing or some of the things he's discussed. We'll put links in the show notes when this is done. Bollard plates, right?
So anchorage,
they're not something that everybody's using.
Yes.
Again, the overwhelming majority of orthodontists I know tell me they don't want to get involved in this stuff. It's expensive. It is also potentially one of the least invasive ways to deal with a maxilla that is set back. If you hit it at that perfect 6 to 12 month period when the lower cuspids are just starting to come in, the permanent lower cuspid. Because I'm going to give a shout out, Dr. John Marchetto. You probably don't know him, from South Florida. He was the practice I was going to leave Nova and graduate and go into his practice before my wife and I decided we wanted to get out of South Florida and head over to Dallas. And he brought bone plates to South Florida, him and Steve Reimer, the surgeon at Boca, who do amazing work. And so I got to spend time with John a ton, and he showed me all the cases he'd done with bone plates. And he'd gone to see Hugo de Klerk and Junji Sugawara, right, over in Japan. And so we were seeing some really cool things. And if you can do bollard plates at the right moment, and I'm not talking an intrusion, you can do intrusion all day long with good bollard plates. But if you're trying to get AP correction of a maxilla at the right time, bollard plates are amazing. But you've taken a special spin on bollard plates. You're doing something a little differently, right?
Yes. So it was a journey, just like a MARPI. People reached out to us and said, we need different anchorage. How can we get creative? So so designing a bollard plate was not a hard part. Implementing CBCT, making sure we're not hitting any nerves, was the biggest challenge. So we figured that out. And then the second challenge was to create a guide. So we did create a guide.
That was going to be my question right there. You're doing guided
bollard plate installation. Yes. So the bollard plate gets inserted into guide, placed on a occlusal level. You put screws in, you remove it, voila, done. Amazing. It's very simple process. We make sure we go interproximal between the roots. We make sure we don't touch the nerves. We show everything to the doctors at the Zoom call. Unfortunately, COVID made us smarter. You know, when COVID came in and we could not interact anymore with our customers, I said, you know what? Let's get on a Zoom. And once we got on a Zoom, I said, well, you know what? Let's show doctors what we do on a Zoom. And all of a sudden, our airway department doing digital consultations all day long made a whole different story. And doctors feel comfortable. They receive a case. They know exactly where the TADs are going. They receive complete guide with the length of a TADs. We provide all the TADs, different brands. But a guide was a game changer.
That's amazing. So if I wanted to do a MARPI in my practice, right? Let's just say it's somebody who doesn't need a piezo cut, because I don't. I'm an orthodontist, right? And as much as I used to love doing surgery and endo, again, dirty little secret, I love endo. My practice is not set up to take a piezo and do a midline split or do something, below the interpupilla or something like whatever it needs to be. If I have somebody, let's call it a 20-year-old female, right? She's not growing anymore. Perfect case for MARPI, in my opinion, for tiger screw, right? So I can get it. It's tooth-borne, right? So I seat it. But there's a guide for me to put my TADs in. So it truly is set it and forget it. I can get the patient numb. Do a boom, 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 no complications, bicortical engagement, done.
Yes. Once she expands, you don't need any more dental expansion. You can remove the bands, cut the arms off, and continue expanding her skeletally.
While doing aligners.
Yes.
Which is what I used to do.
Yes.
Right?
That's the whole trick now.
I would cut the things. I was doing braces where aligners didn't matter, but when nothing's over the teeth, now I can scan for aligners. A little secret I've learned, that I'll share with everybody out there. I used to try to close the diastemas using ortho. Now, if they're bands and brackets and wires, it works very nicely. You're going to get a lot of tipping because you're going to be in very light wires and you're not using heavy force. But with aligners, I have found, and this is through a lot of cases, that naturally the interdental fibers will close the space faster than I can close it with aligners. I've had so many patients whose teeth were moving ahead of their aligners at an unpredictable case. Now, there are people out there who figured out how to harness this effectively and use aligners more effectively than I am. I'm not smart enough, but I now allow the teeth just to come together for 3 to 4 months before I, unless there's something posteriorly I have to fix. But I just let them come together on their own until they're tipped in, and then I put attachments on and get the roots, aligned.
Yes. There is some doctors now developing even different technique. They're using aligners and they close diastema as they open it.
Right.
They go very slow,
Yeah.
but for people that's in business on people and do not want to have diastema, it's a game changer too.
I know. I've got, when it comes to doing treatment, my surgeon says to me, I've got pretty big couillons, right? I don't know if they use that word in Minnesota, but baits him. Okay. And even I am not that eager to start moving teeth into new bone, into it's more than I'm willing to take on, is trying to close the diastema into a space that was just created, because I'm not so worried about the bone. I'm worried about the soft tissue. I'm really worried about stripping and having a huge black triangle there when we're done. And that is the last thing on the planet. And I will tell patients, if you're in that big of a rush, I'm the wrong doctor for you. But like you said, there's great doctors out there who are doing that. And anything else you want to add, Djamil? Did I not? I mean, I know that if anybody wants to learn more, we're going to talk about that in a second. You'll gladly, your team loves getting on the phone or Zoom with doctors and showing them anything and everything that you're doing and how you do things differently and how you onboard with the team and how you present and work back and forth and the whole relationship. I know you love doing that stuff, but is there anything else that I've missed that you wanted to share?
What I tried to make it different in our orthodontic laboratory is, once we started growing and the questions were keep coming up, I said, I think we need to create a different position in the lab industry. I think I want to have a clinical director. And everybody was telling me, we have you, why do we need a clinical director? I said, well, I will not be able to answer all the questions. We're going to grow bigger. And we created a clinical director position. It was a best move we've ever made in our laboratory. We constantly have that director available to consult with all the custom cases, Zoom consultations. That's the guy besides our airway team. Our airway team is fascinating, but our clinical director can really jump on a phone call, design a case, make something special. And we now thinking that we need 2 clinical directors as we're growing. Yes.
I mean, there are people out there who talk about the American dream. You are living proof of the American dream, right? You came over 24 years ago.
Yes.
And you have an amazing work ethic.
Yes. Thank
you. You had a passion for something. You went all in. You invested. You probably spent so much money that you didn't have to build something.
I'm happy to share. Right pre-COVID, I went to, I think, San Francisco, and to AAO meeting, and I listened to Dr. Christian Gross speak. I'm going to give up a little secret. I came back to the lab. I had 18 employees. I said, guys, we're going to buy a metal printer. Everybody looked at me. I said, give me 6 months. So for 6 months, I was reaching out all over the world because no metal printers back then were in the United States. We got some samples, we got some testings, and we bought a metal printer. That was 2019. And 2 months later, COVID comes in and we closed. That printer was expensive. It was about $300,000.
Wow.
So it stood in one of the offices. I came on the weekends and I printed and I played with it. And I kept part of my team in a lab just to stay innovative and not close completely for emergency stuff. Now we have 3 metal printers, and we are blessed. We are blessed. Yeah. Amazing team.
Well, by the way, there's a great lesson in there beyond the American dream. Yes. There's a great lesson in that investing in technology makes perfect sense when you understand the technology you're investing in, when it's part of a bigger plan and you know how to monetize it, right? Because what you couldn't have done was what many people do with their technology, which is to buy it, bring it in, and it sits like a coat rack in the corner. It sat during COVID, but I'll guarantee or be pretty sure that it couldn't have sat there forever without making money. Because if it didn't, you would have taken a bath. And all too often people hear this great bell or whistle, they want to buy this thing, and they get excited, but they don't stop and wonder, where does it fit in the broader technology plan for my practice? And for each and one of you listening out there, I hope you have a technology plan.
Yes.
And you need to design what technology you want, for what reason, and when, and how you plan on monetizing it. Because if your plan is, I want to get a 3D printer, great. Why do you want a 3D printer? Well, because everybody has them. Well, that's not good enough. Why do you want? Well, I'm gonna do models. Why can't you do alginate and stone? Well, my patients will be happier. Is it making you any more money? So, like DJ Quick from Compton always said in his song, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And I tell people that if it's not making you money and you're willing to say, I'll do this and lose money, good for you. That's not business. So when it comes to aligners, I know people who won't do any aligners because it's expensive. But if you have capacity or hire less people or can book your practice with more, it does make sense to go with aligners if you're good at them. So anyway, sorry for, again, you bring out the soapbox in me, Djamil.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. No, innovation is the key for any practice, for any company. In today's days and society, this is what I constantly preach to my kids, to my family at work. I said, we cannot be sitting, we cannot be stumbling on things. I want to research. I want to know the answers. I want to go ahead of the game all the time. I want to know where we're going to be in 1 year. What are we going to print in 1 year? We started with titanium bonded wires. They are available. It's complicated. It's not very cost effective to print titanium bonded wire. It's a lot of post processing. It's expensive. Just to start the titanium print cost about $280. In filters, I said, let's print a couple of titanium bonded wires. Let's print titanium Maryland bridges for people with allergies. Let's offer those options. Let's step out of our comfort zone and see what else can we do.
It's amazing.
And printing. Now we have 3 printers.
Well, I'm going to ask you one last question.
Yes.
I have to.
Yes.
And you got to give me an answer, okay?
Yes.
There's no hiding.
Yes. Okay.
We're friends, Djamil.
Yes.
What is the next cool thing coming down the turnpike?
It's coming. I can't say it. I think we are.
I knew you were going to do that. Fine.
Well, it's obviously going to involve technology, and I'm gonna give one secret. It's only a click of a button away. So
that's not helpful in any way.
With a click of a button.
Mean. We're not friends anymore.
We are forever.
I know. No, the point is, I recognize that there's certain secrets you must keep within your industry to be able to get the leg up, and I respect that. But I know you're always at the cutting edge. I know you're always a supporter of everything Orthopreneurs, and it's beautiful when there's a sponsor who helps make courses possible, like the Orthopreneurs RD annual event you were recently at. You helped make that possible. Yes. And at the same time, I get to learn from them. It's there's a number, I guess, of sponsors out there who have products that when I sit and listen to them talk, I really learn. I really understand my practice, business, leadership, management, clinical outcomes better because of what they're telling me. And you're at the top of that list, my friend. Our friendship did not come because we play golf together. And our friendship did not come because we go drinking together. Our friendship started because I came to your booth and you started showing me with so much passion some amazing things you were doing that I'd seen from nobody else. And for anybody else out there who wants to say, well, we're doing the same thing, great, reach out to me. If you're doing everything that Djamil is doing, reach out to me. Let's talk. I'd love to learn more about you.
Show me what you got.
Yeah, I mean, to date, and I don't say this in a sarcastic, cynical, I'll shoot you down sort of way. I mean it as a welcoming, join the fraternity of technological advancement
100%.
Sort of way. So if someone out there is doing something that Djamil is doing and he doesn't know about it, come talk to me. Let me know. I'll make an introduction. If you take one really smart person and you take another really smart person and you put them together, 1 + 1 = 3. And there aren't that many people out there who are going to sit and discuss this stuff with Djamil. And if you're doing this stuff, come to me. I want to make an introduction for you guys. And so
fantastic.
I want to say thank you for everything from the bottom of my heart, Djamil. You're an amazing mover and shaker. You are a pioneer. You are pushing the envelope. You're getting people excited about things. And I'm just always here to help in any way I can and can't wait to learn more from you.
Thank you. Super excited for being on the show. Continue our journey with Orthopreneurs. Believe in your mission. I listen to your podcast as I drive in the evening,
I
and
know
I
you sent
love
me a picture.
and I love your 34 pounds journey. But what I like about it, I love that you gained 17 pounds of muscles, because
Yeah.
I lost 40 pounds and I don't know what I gained. We'll talk
Happiness.
more privately.
You gained
It's
happiness. Yeah,
yes.
but again, he's referring to the podcast I did with Jeffrey Galvin, my Vitality and Medical Wellness out of Charlotte, who I started with in February of 23. Started at 31% body fat, which is more than I really wanted, and dropped down to 13. Lost 34 pounds of fat. We did a DEXA scan, which is the gold standard. Beforehand, we did a DEXA scan at 6 months, and in 6 months, I dropped 34 pounds of fat. I gained 17 pounds of muscle. No, I didn't. Technically, testosterone is a steroid, I've been told. I don't remember my biochemistry, but beyond that, just a lot of really good working out, a lot of really good eating, a lot of supplements, really focusing on myself. And it changed my life. So just like Djamil, if anybody wants to talk about it, reach out to me. I have no vested or financial interest in any company that helped me get there. But at age 56, to be down to 13% body fat, I would not have been able to do it without the help of others. And so I appreciate you, Djamil.
I love it. I love it.
And we can talk
Thank you
about
for
that.
having me again.
Last question, the most important. How do
Yes.
people get a hold of you?
I will provide. I'm always available. Number one.
Well, now, you have a chance to tell people. Give me a website, an email address. How do people get you?
It's Djamil, D as a David, J as a Janie, A as a Apple, M as a Michael, I as a Isaac, L as a Lincoln at partnersdentalstudio.com. Or you can text me if you hear this message today, 612-345-0165. I'm always available for my people.
Operators are standing by. And it's Djamil, DJAMIL at partnersdentalstudio.com.
Correct.
There you go. Thank you, Djamil. Can't wait till the next event when we're together and I can learn more from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.